5 children were left out on the streets to beg for coins until a widowed millionaire crossed their path. And before we step into this powerful story, leave a comment below and tell us where you're tuning in from. Enjoy the journey. Harrison, Blackstone stepped out of his charcoal black Bentley into the biting December wind that slashed through Manhattan's financial district like a blade. At 52, he radiated a commanding presence, with cold, steel-gray eyes that had long forgotten how to feel, and a jaw locked in permanent determination. 5 years of rising from the ruins of a broken heart had molded him into one of America's most formidable businessmen. The towering building in front of him marked his newest acquisition. Yet another company folded into his empire with the kind of ruthless precision he'd become known for. But as Harrison moved toward the marble steps, something made him stop cold. 5 small figures were curled up against the side of the building, barely visible in the long shadows cast by the surrounding skyscrapers. Children. The oldest, a girl who couldn't have been older than 12, sat with her back pressed to the freezing stone, her thin arms wrapped tightly around 4 smaller kids. Her dark hair fell in messy strands around a face that carried a wisdom far beyond her years. Beside her, a girl around 10 held out a cracked plastic cup with shaking hands to strangers passing by. "Please," she murmured to each person rushing past without so much as a glance. "Just something small." Harrison's chest tightened with an emotion he hadn't allowed himself to feel in 5 years. The older girl's eyes, deep brown, filled with desperate hope, reminded him of someone he had lost. Someone whose memory could still bring him to his knees if he let it. He tried to walk past them, just like everyone else. His business awaited him. Millions of dollars at stake. These children weren't his concern. They weren't his burden. He'd learned the hard way that caring too much only led to unbearable sorrow. But as his hand reached for the cold brass door handle, a small voice rose above the city's chaos, like a whispered prayer. "Please, sir." The eldest girl was staring directly at him, her voice barely louder than the traffic. "They haven't eaten in 2 days." Harrison turned slowly, and for the first time in 5 years, felt the carefully built walls around his heart begin to fracture. He stood, frozen on the sidewalk, one hand still gripping the handle. Her words echoed inside him, awakening memories he'd spent a fortune trying to bury. 5 years ago, rain hammering the windshield of his Mercedes, Catherine laughing in the passenger seat at something their 8-year-old son Michael had said during dinner. The truck, the red light, the horrific crash. Waking up in the hospital to the news he was the only one who survived. "Sir." The girl's voice yanked him back to the present. She was staring at him with unnerving focus, like she could see straight through the armor wrapped around his soul. Harrison's jaw tensed. He had survived by teaching himself not to feel, not to get involved. Emotional ties were weaknesses that opened the door to unbearable pain. These kids were not his to worry about. But Michael's face flickered in his mind. That same fierce determination this girl had, as she shielded the others. "What's your name?" he asked before he could stop himself. "Emma," she answered, shifting slightly to better cover the smallest one. "A boy who couldn't have been more than 4. This is Sophia, and these are our brothers, Tommy, Luis, and Michael." That name struck him like a punch to the gut. Michael. Of course. Harrison pulled out his wallet, removed several crisp $100 bills, and handed them to Emma. Her eyes widened, stunned. "Get food," he said gruffly. "Find somewhere warm." Without waiting for her reply, he turned and entered the building, forcing himself not to look back. That night, Harrison couldn't focus on the acquisition documents spread across his polished mahogany desk. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma's face, the way she had stood between him and the other children. That fierce, protective instinct that so vividly reminded him of Catherine, watching over their son. The next morning, he found himself walking the same path toward his building, telling himself he just wanted to be sure they'd found shelter. But when he arrived at the spot where they'd huddled, Harrison felt a jolt of panic. The children were gone. In their place, dark stains marked the concrete, stains that looked disturbingly like blood. Harrison stood there, staring at the ground, as every business instinct in him screamed that something had gone terribly wrong. 4. The first time in 5 years, reason gave way to raw emotion. He pulled out his phone and called his head of security. "David, I need you here right away. Bring the team." Within 20 minutes, David Martinez arrived with 2 investigators. In tow, Harrison had long understood that safeguarding a billion-dollar empire meant having people who could locate anyone, anywhere. "Sir." David inspected the bloodstains with calm professionalism. "5 children were here yesterday," Harrison said, his voice tight. "They're gone now. Find them." David nodded without hesitation. He had worked for Harrison long enough to understand that tone. It meant everything else had to be dropped immediately. Harrison spent the entire morning speaking with every homeless person within 6 blocks. His usual cold demeanor faded as he showed them the pictures he had quietly taken of the children the day before. Most people scattered the moment they saw his expensive suit, but a few recognized Emma and her siblings. "A big guy took them," wheezed an elderly woman wrapped tightly in layers of newspaper. "Mean-looking man with hands like hammers." The kids were screaming, but no one helped. "No one ever helps." Harrison slipped a $100 bill into her palm. "What did he look like?" "Maybe in his 40s. Brown hair, ugly scar on his left cheek. Drove an old, busted-up blue van. Plate started with END, I think." Something deep inside Harrison stirred. Something he thought had been buried for good. That urgent need to protect the innocent. The same fire that once drove him to work endless hours to provide for Catherine and Michael. David's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Boss, we got a hit on the van. Registered to Marcus Reed. 847 Sunset Avenue, Brooklyn. Record shows assault and child endangerment." Harrison was already heading toward his car when his phone buzzed from an unknown number. A rough, hostile voice came through. "If you want to see those kids alive again, come alone to the address I'm about to text. No cops, no guards, no tricks. You've got 1 hour, billionaire." The call ended abruptly. Harrison stared at his phone. And in the silence, Catherine's voice echoed in his memory. "Promise me you'll never stop fighting for what's right." He had made that promise 8 years ago, before the accident took everything that mattered. Today, he was going to keep it. Harrison's sleek Bentley looked completely out of place in the run-down Brooklyn neighborhood. Broken streetlights cast distorted shadows across boarded-up storefronts. 847 Sunset Avenue was a decaying 4-story building, its bricks darkened with decades of grime and neglect. He climbed the creaky staircase to apartment 3B, each step groaning under his weight like a ticking clock. The hallway reeked of mold and something far worse, desperation. Before he could knock, the door swung open. Marcus Reed filled the frame, a massive man hardened by violence. A jagged scar stretched from his temple down to his jaw, twisting, his mouth into a permanent sneer. His eyes were cold, calculating, the eyes of a predator sizing up his prey. "Well, well," Marcus muttered with a smirk. "The mighty Harrison Blackstone." He stepped aside mockingly. "Come into my humble palace." The apartment was revolting. Wallpaper peeled from the walls in strips, revealing stained and crumbling plaster. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and the stench of filth. But what made Harrison's blood run hot was the sound. Quiet sobbing coming from a locked door. "Let me see them," Harrison demanded, his voice sharp and unwavering. Marcus laughed, his yellowed teeth flashing. "Straight to the point. I respect that." He took his time unlocking the bedroom door, dragging it out like a cruel performance. Inside, 5 children were huddled on a thin mattress in a room barely bigger than a closet. Emma looked up as light entered, her face marked with fresh bruises. Sophia held little Michael tightly, while Tommy and Luis pressed against the wall in fear. Harrison had seen ruthless takeovers and billion-dollar betrayals. Nothing had prepared him for the sight of these wounded children. "They're mine now," Marcus said with smug pride. "I'm their legal guardian since their mama passed. It's incredible what the right paperwork can get you." Harrison pulled out his checkbook. "Name your price." $5 million. Done. Harrison began writing the check without hesitation. But Marcus's laughter stopped him cold. "You think this is about money?" He leaned casually on the doorframe, blocking Harrison's view of the kids. "You're missing the bigger picture, billionaire. These kids aren't just a paycheck. They're protection." Harrison froze, instincts screaming that something was off. Marcus's smile grew darker. "Someone important told me you'd show up. Someone who knows exactly how to twist your heart." His voice lowered to a whisper. "Someone who's been waiting 5 years for the perfect chance to destroy you." Harrison's pen hovered above the checkbook. Years of corporate instincts told him this wasn't random. It was a setup. "Someone contacted you?" he asked, voice cool and dangerous. Marcus lit a cigarette and blew the smoke toward the children's room. 3 days ago, real smooth guy, expensive suit. Said he's been watching you. Knew you'd crack over a few crying kids. Promised legal protection and enough money to live like a king if I played my part. Who was it? Didn't give a name right away. Just said he knew all your soft spots. Marcus's eyes gleamed with sick pleasure. Told me everything. Your dead wife. Your kid. How you've been hiding for years. Said you'd shatter like glass if the right buttons were pushed. A chill crept through Harrison's spine. Someone had studied him. His pain. His patterns. His silence. These children weren't just targets. They were bait. You see, Marcus went on, to the right person, these kids are worth more than 5 million. Someone who wants to see you squirm. Someone with big plans for your legacy. From the bedroom, Emma's voice called out, weak but fierce. He's lying about our mother. She didn't just die. She was... Shut up! Marcus shouted, slamming the door so hard the frame cracked. Harrison stepped forward, rage overtaking reason. If you've harmed them... What? You'll call the cops? Marcus sneered. I'm their legal guardian. Got the papers. Social services backs me. Far as the law's concerned, you're just some rich stranger trying to steal kids. Harrison's phone buzzed. He looked down at the message, and the ground shifted beneath him. It was in Portuguese, the language he and his cousin used when they wanted to keep secrets as children. The message read, Primo, quiet kind, interest vloigato cousin, dear. How interesting to see you so emotionally involved. Vincent Blackstone, his father's brother's son. The cousin who had always despised Harrison's success. The one removed from the family empire because of his recklessness and violent outbursts. Harrison looked up. Marcus was watching with sinister satisfaction. Ah, Marcus said, seeing the realization on Harrison's face. So you figured it out. Your cousin sends his regards. Harrison drove through Manhattan's glowing streets with a deadly calm, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Vincent's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building funded by Harrison's own company. A cruel irony he didn't miss. The private elevator rose 60 stories in a silence that felt like judgment. Vincent stood at the window, facing Central Park, holding a crystal glass of scotch. At 48, he shared the family's dark features, but none of its discipline. Where Harrison had built empires, Vincent had squandered inheritances and collected grudges. Primo, Vincent said without turning, using the old nickname that now felt like venom. I was wondering when you'd finally crawl your way up here. Let the children go. Harrison's voice was like a blade slicing through the room. Vincent turned, and Harrison saw it. 2 decades of hatred burning in eyes that matched his own. Straight to the point. No chit-chat about family. No warm memories. There's nothing left to talk about. Oh, but I think there is. Vincent moved closer, circling like a vulture. There's everything that should have been mine. Grandfather's company, handed to your father instead of mine. The family fortune that always seemed to land in your lap. The respect, the power, the picture-perfect life with your perfect wife and perfect son. Harrison's jaw tensed. Catherine and Michael have nothing to do with this, don't they? Vincent's smile turned razor sharp. Poor Harrison. Lost it all in that tragic accident. Spent 5 years building walls. But those walls have cracks, don't they? All it took was 5 filthy children to wake up that noble heart you inherited from our saintly grandfather. This isn't about the children. This is about you. This is about you wanting what you've never earned. Vincent's carefully polished mask of civility finally cracked. Earned? He snapped, slamming his glass so hard against the desk it shattered into pieces. I earned it by watching you get everything handed to you while I was left with scraps. Well, not anymore, Primo. Those kids, they're going to be the key to transferring every share, every asset, every last cent of your precious empire into my hands. Harrison felt the trap tightening around him like a steel vise. You can't force me to sign anything. With a smug grin, Vincent pulled a manila folder from his desk, flipping it open with theatrical flair. Inside were legal guardianship documents for Marcus Reed, dated 6 months prior. There were child services reports recommending he stay in custody, medical records confirming the children had been in his care since their mother's death. Harrison's blood went cold as he scanned the contents. Every document appeared airtight and legitimate. The beauty of bureaucracy, cousin, Vincent said with a twisted smile, is that it always sides with whoever has the better paperwork. Harrison spent the next 72 hours activating the most powerful legal minds in New York. Constitutional experts, family court specialists, investigators who could dig up dirt on saints. He spared no expense. Every door was knocked on. Every favor was called in. But one by one, the doors began slamming shut. Judge Morrison, who'd handled family cases for over 2 decades, suddenly recused himself. The replacement judge mysteriously claimed a scheduling conflict. Every time Harrison's team reached out to social services, they were told the computer systems were down. It felt as if the entire system had been immunized against his influence. This isn't natural, said Margaret Chin, Harrison's lead attorney during their emergency meeting. Someone's greased every wheel. This kind of coordination takes serious money and very serious connections. Harrison stood at the window of his office, staring out over the city he once thought he controlled. How long do we have? Vincent. Filed for an expedited custody transfer. Margaret said grimly. He's claiming you're stalking the children and endangering them. We've got maybe 48 hours before they vanish into the system for good. Just then, his secretary's voice came over the intercom. Mr. Blackstone, there's a young girl here. She says her name is Emma. She says it's about the other children. Harrison's heart froze. Send her in. Now. Emma slipped quietly into his office like a ghost. Her dark hair was still tangled, but her eyes burned with sharp intelligence, the same kind that reminded him painfully of Michael. Her clothes were clearly stolen, a jacket far too big for her, shoes held together by willpower. How did you get here? Harrison asked, voice gentle. Marcus got drunk last night. I picked the lock with a bobby pin. She said, holding up a bent piece of metal proudly. My mom taught me that trick. Before Vincent killed her. Her words struck Harrison like lightning. What did you say? Emma's young face hardened with grief and resolve. Our mom didn't just die in an accident. She found out Marcus was faking paperwork, pretending to be our stepdad. She was going to report him. Then Vincent came to our apartment 3 months ago. I heard him arguing with her through the door. Then there was a loud noise, and she never woke up. Harrison knelt beside her, his voice soft but urgent. "Emma, are you absolutely sure about what you heard?" She pulled a battered smartphone from her jacket. "I recorded it. My mom always said to keep proof if adults tried to hurt us. I heard Vincent tell Marcus that you were the final target, and that they were going to make you disappear just like they made her disappear." Harrison stared at Emma's determined face, and for a moment, it felt like time collapsed in on itself. She was exactly the age Michael would be now, 12, with that same fierce fire behind her eyes. He remembered Michael at 7, standing up to a playground bully twice his size because the kid was picking on someone smaller. "That's not fair," Michael had shouted, tiny fists clenched with righteous fury. Harrison had never been prouder. "Emma," Harrison said quietly, "you're incredibly brave. Just like he couldn't finish. Just like your son," Emma said gently, her voice full of understanding. "I heard Marcus talking. About him. About the accident. I'm sorry." Harrison felt something break open in his chest. Something frozen for 5 long years. This 12-year-old girl, who had lost her mother and was protecting 4 siblings, was now the one comforting him. "Michael would have been your age now," he said softly, "and he had your spirit. Always standing up. Always fighting for others." Emma stepped closer, studying his face with unnerving insight. "Is that why you're helping us? Because we remind you of him?" Harrison met her eyes without flinching. "Maybe it started that way, but not anymore. You're not Michael. You're Emma, and you deserve protection because you're you." For the first time since entering his office, Emma's tough shell cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I've been so scared. I don't know how to keep them safe anymore." Harrison felt his heart fully wake up. The part of him he thought had died. You don't have to do it alone now." Emma wiped her tears and straightened up, shoulders squaring. "The recording is hidden in my jacket lining. But Mr. Blackstone, there's something else. Vincent knows I escaped. He's probably moving. The others right now." As if summoned by her words, Harrison's phone buzzed with a video message. The footage showed Sophia, Tommy, Louise, and little Michael huddled together in what looked like a warehouse. Their eyes were wide with fear. Vincent's voice came through the speaker. "You've got 1 hour, Primo. 1 hour to transfer controlling interest of all your companies to me, or these children disappear forever. And this time, there won't be any miracles." The video ended with the little Michael's voice trembling. "Emma, Emma, help us." Harrison felt a storm rise in his chest. Rage and love merging into something he hadn't felt since the night he lost his family. The unshakable drive to save those he loved, no matter the cost. He looked down at the transfer document spread across his mahogany desk. 25 years of empire building reduced to a few signatures. Signing them would strip him of everything. Power, wealth, control. But all he could see were those terrified children crying out for their sister. "You don't have to do this," Emma said softly beside him, placing a small hand on his arm. "Not for us." "Yes, I do," Harrison replied. He picked up the pen. Every company, every share, every investment, none of it mattered when weighed against those children's lives. "But it's everything you've built," Emma said, voice trembling. Harrison looked into her eyes and saw Michael's reflection there. "I thought I lost everything 5 years ago, but now I understand what really matters." Tears ran silently down Emma's face as she watched him prepare to give up his entire legacy. "My mama used to say, family isn't about blood. It's about who you'd give everything up to protect." Harrison's hand trembled as he held the pen. In less than an hour, he'd be a nobody. No wealth, no leverage, no defense against someone like Vincent. But 4 innocent lives would be safe. He pressed the pen to the page. "Mr. Blackstone, wait!" Emma's voice suddenly rose with urgency. "Yesterday, When I was hiding outside Marcus's room, I heard him on the phone with Vincent. They weren't just talking about taking your companies. Harrison's pen froze. What did you hear? Vincent said the money was just the beginning. He said, her voice dropped to a whisper. He said once you signed everything over, you'd be a loose end. And Marcus, he asked what to do about the witnesses. The pieces locked together in Harrison's mind with terrifying clarity. Vincent wasn't just trying to rob him. He intended to silence everyone who could expose the truth. They're going to kill us all, aren't they? Emma asked quietly. Her 12-year-old voice carried a weight no child should ever bear. Harrison set down the pen and pulled out his phone. He replayed the video message. There, in the background, almost invisible, was a logo on the warehouse wall. Blackstone Shipping. One of his own facilities. Emma, he said urgently, you said you recorded Vincent talking to your mother. She nodded. And you heard him plotting to get rid of witnesses? Every word. Hope surged in Harrison's chest for the first time in years. Hope mixed with steely resolve. Then we're not signing anything, he said. We're going to save your family and take Vincent down for good. But I need you to be braver than any 12-year-old should ever have to be. Emma's eyes lit with that same determined fire. The one that used to live in Michael. Tell me what to do. Harrison's office turned into a war room within minutes. His top security, personnel, led by David Martinez, spread out detailed blueprints of the Blackstone shipping warehouse across the conference table. Emma leaned over them with the focus of a battlefield commander. 12 cameras, motion sensors at every entrance. David reported, "But Vincent knows our playbook. He'll be ready." Emma traced her finger along the blueprint. There, she said, pointing to a narrow maintenance shaft. I'm small enough to crawl through that. If I can reach my siblings, I can lead them out, while you distract Vincent. Absolutely not, Harrison said immediately. You're 12 years old. I'm not putting you in danger. Emma's eyes lit up with a fiery determination that was all too familiar. Mr. Blackstone, I've been protecting my family for months. I know how to disappear when I have to. Harrison turned to his laptop, fingers racing across the keyboard as he accessed the warehouse's internal security feed. Vincent may know my standard procedures, he said, but he doesn't know everything. The screen filled with live footage showing the 4 children huddled in a dim corner. 2 armed guards stood nearby. There's Marcus, Emma whispered, pointing to the larger man. And that's Vincent's other guy, Carlos. They look nervous. Harrison's phone buzzed. Vincent's voice came through without greeting. Time's running out, Primo. 40 minutes left, or the kids start paying the price for your stubbornness. I need the transfer codes for the offshore accounts, Harrison replied, trying to buy time. That takes time. You have 30 minutes, not a second more. The line went dead. David checked his weapon. Boss, we can breach through the front entrance with a full tactical team. No, Harrison said, cutting him off. Emma's right. Stealth is our only chance. He turned to the girl beside him. But you're not going in alone. Emma gave him a look full of fearless determination, the same kind Michael once wore. Together? Together. 20 minutes later, Harrison's Bentley crept through the deserted warehouse district, taking the back routes David had carefully mapped. Emma held a small comm device in her hand, her young face calm but resolved. Remember, Harrison said gently, you find your siblings and wait for my signal. No heroics. No heroics. Emma agreed. Then she added, with a maturity that stung his heart, but if something goes wrong, save them first. As they reached the warehouse perimeter, Harrison's heart skipped. Vincent's voice echoed through external speakers. I know you're here, Primo. I've been watching since you left your office. A wave of dread washed over Harrison. Time for Plan B, Vincent said with a laugh that chilled the air. Did you really think I wouldn't have surveillance on your building? I've been tracking your every move for weeks. The trap was snapping shut. Through the warehouse windows, Harrison saw Vincent's silhouette standing above the children like a predator admiring his prey. Emma grabbed his arm, guilt in her eyes. It's my fault. I should have known he'd be watching. This isn't your fault, Harrison replied, though his voice carried the weight of impending defeat. Vincent's voice roared once more. Here's what's going to happen, Primo. You walk through the front door alone with the signed transfer documents. The girl stays outside as insurance. Try anything clever, and I start removing witnesses one by one. Harrison's phone buzzed. A video message played. Carlos holding a gun to little Michael's head, the boy crying and calling for his sister, the child who bore the same name as Harrison's son, a boy now facing death because Harrison had failed to protect him. 30 seconds, cousin, Vincent snarled. Then I show you how serious I am. Harrison looked at Emma. In her eyes, he saw his own helplessness mirrored back at him. I have to go in. No. Emma clung to his jacket. It's a trap. He'll kill you the moment you sign those papers. Maybe, Harrison said quietly. But if I don't go, he'll definitely kill your siblings. Tears streamed down Emma's face as the unbearable weight of impossible choices pressed down on them both. There has to be another way. Then Harrison's phone buzzed again. This time, a legal document notification. His blood froze. Vincent had already filed emergency custody transfer documents using forged signatures. Legally, the children were now being assigned to Marcus Reed permanently, and Harrison was being charged with attempted kidnapping. He's not just stealing my money, Harrison whispered. He's framing me for trying to abduct the children. Even if we rescue them now, the law will tear them away again. Through the warehouse windows, Vincent drew closer to the children, a grin of cruel triumph on his face. Marcus stood behind him, his smirk as twisted as the plan itself. Emma suddenly stiffened. Mr. Blackstone, the recording I made, it's not just Vincent talking to my mom. What do you mean? I kept recording. After she died, I heard Vincent giving Marcus instructions about the fake legal documents, about framing you, about making you look like some obsessed man trying to steal us. A flicker of hope stirred inside Harrison. Where's the recording now? Emma's face went pale. It's in the jacket. The one I left in your office when we came here. Harrison's mind raced. Outside, Vincent's voice barked through the loudspeakers. 15 seconds, Primo. The boy dies first. David. Harrison whispered into his comm. Go back to my office. Retrieve Emma's jacket. The recording is sewn into the lining. It's critical. On it, boss. Emma wiped her tears and squared her shoulders. Mr. Blackstone, I have an idea, but you're not going to like it. Tell me. Vincent expects you to walk in defeated. So let's give him what he wants. And secretly, record everything. Harrison pulled out his phone and activated a secure live stream to a private server. Emma, this is incredibly dangerous. So is doing nothing, she said, eyes blazing with the same bravery Harrison once saw in Michael. If we can get him to confess on camera and combine it with my hidden audio, no corrupt judge in the world can protect him. Vincent's voice thundered through the speakers. Time's up. Say goodbye to... I'm here, Harrison yelled, stepping into the floodlights just beyond the warehouse doors. Let's finish this. The warehouse stretched out before him, vast and echoing, like a cathedral made of steel and concrete. Stacked containers loomed like silent witnesses to what was about to unfold. Vincent stood in the center, gun pointed at the children, who cowered on the floor. Smart move, Primo, he sneered. Harrison raised the transfer papers. Let the children go first, Vincent chuckled. So noble. But you misunderstand. These kids, they're witnesses. Can't have them spreading tales about Uncle Vincent being less than generous. Harrison's phone, tucked discreetly in his inner jacket pocket, continued, streaming every word and movement. You see, Primo, Vincent said, stepping closer. Killing you was always part of the plan. And the children too, of course. No loose ends when $20 billion is on the line. His laughter echoed off the walls. Poor Harrison Blackstone. A madman who died trying to kidnap children. So tragic. Emma's voice whispered in Harrison's earpiece. David has the jacket. The file's uploading to your server now. Vincent moved closer, gun never leaving Harrison's chest. First, you're going to sign. Transfer every company, every account. Then you'll watch me take your place. Harrison began signing, slowly, stalling for time as the data upload progressed. Why, Vincent? He asked. We were family. Once. Family? Vincent spat. You were the golden boy. I got scraps. Now it's my turn to feast. Harrison's phone buzzed again. A message from David. Evidence uploaded. FBI contacted. ETA. 12 minutes. 12 minutes felt like a lifetime. Vincent grabbed the documents, eyes glittering with triumph. Beautiful penmanship, Primo. You've just made me the richest man in New York. And now? Harrison asked, though he already knew the answer. Now, you all disappear. Vincent raised his gun, aiming straight at Harrison's heart. Before he could fire, Emma's voice rang out across the warehouse. Before you kill anyone. Uncle Vincent, don't you want to know what I recorded the night you murdered my mom? Vincent turned sharply as Emma stepped into the open, her cracked smartphone held up like a weapon of truth. You little... Vincent snarled, lunging forward. But Harrison moved faster. He tackled Vincent to the ground, the gun flying from his hand as they crashed into a stack of crates. Emma didn't hesitate. She bolted for her siblings while Marcus reached for his own weapon. Sophia! She shouted. Get Tommy and Luis behind the containers. But it was little Michael, the 4-year-old boy who shared Harrison's son's name, who made the difference. As Marcus cornered Sophia, Michael sank his teeth into the man's leg with all his might. Marcus stumbled just long enough for Harrison to reach him. All of Harrison's training, all the skills honed in decades of high-stakes defense, came back to him in a flash. He disarmed Marcus with precision and force. Meanwhile, Emma had found the main power panel. Everyone, close your eyes, she shouted. Then she pulled the main breaker. The warehouse instantly plunged into darkness. The only light remaining was the faint glow of Emma's phone screen. In the chaos that followed, Harrison heard Vincent cursing as he scrambled to locate his gun in the shadows. David, we need that backup. Now, Harrison said into his comms while gathering the children close to him. Emma's voice was calm and steady, even with danger closing in. Mr. Blackstone, I uploaded the entire recording to your social media accounts 5 minutes ago. Vincent's confession is already going viral. Through the blackness, Vincent's voice screamed with pure fury. You think this changes anything? I own judges, police chiefs, politicians. No one's going to believe a 12-year-old orphan over a respected businessman. That's when Sophia's small voice cut through his rage. They'll believe 5 children, and they'll believe the video I took of you pointing that gun at us tonight. A wave of pride rose in Harrison's chest. These children, Emma's intelligence, Sophia's bravery, Tommy and Luis's quiet strength, little Michael's instinct to protect. They were fighting with everything they had. In the distance, the sound of sirens grew louder, building with every passing second. Vincent managed to find his weapon and fired blindly into the darkness. But Harrison had already moved the children behind a massive shipping container that provided solid protection. 12 years, Vincent shouted into the void. I waited 12 years for this moment. Emma's voice didn't waver. Then you wasted 12 years of your life. Suddenly, the warehouse burst into blinding light as FBI agents swarmed in from every side. Their flashlights swept through the gloom like blades of justice. Vincent's wild gunfire missed completely as federal agents surrounded him with practiced precision. FBI, drop your weapon! Vincent's face twisted with disbelief and rage as Agent Sarah Chin stepped forward, her gun pointed squarely at his chest. Behind her, Agent Rodriguez had Marcus pinned to the ground, reading him his rights. "This is impossible," Vincent shouted as handcuffs snapped around his wrists. "I own half the judges in this city." Agent Chin's voice was firm and cold. "Not federal judges, Mr. Blackstone, and especially not when you're caught on video confessing to conspiracy, murder, and the abuse of children." Harrison pulled the children closer behind the shipping container, his arms wrapping around them like a shield. Little Michael clung tightly to his jacket. Sophia and Tommy held on to Emma as if she were the only safe place in the world. Agent Chin approached with calm authority. "Mr. Blackstone, we've reviewed both recordings. The smartphone audio from 3 months ago and the live stream from tonight. Combined with the forged custody documents, we have everything we need." Emma stepped forward, her voice steady despite the whirlwind she had just survived. "What happens to us now?" Agent Rodriguez joined them, her expression kind but measured. "The custody documents were completely fraudulent. Marcus Reed has no legal standing over any of you. We're working with family services to arrange appropriate placement." Harrison's heart sank. After everything they'd been through, these children would be separated, scattered by the same broken system that had failed them from the start. "Agent Chin," he said slowly, "I'd like to petition for emergency custody." Vincent's mocking laughter echoed from across the warehouse even as agents dragged him away. "You really think they'll hand children over to a man with no parenting experience? You're dreaming, Primo." Agent Chin turned back to Harrison, her eyes assessing. "Mr. Blackstone, given your role in all this, we'd need full background checks, psychological evaluations, home inspections." "He saved us," Emma said suddenly, cutting through the list. Her voice rang with conviction. "When no one else cared, when the system ignored us, he risked everything to protect us." Agent Chin crouched to meet Emma's eyes. "Sweetheart, emergency placements are complicated. There are rules and steps we have to follow. Please," came a small, fragile voice. It was little Michael. He spoke so softly it was barely audible. "Don't make us go with strangers again." 6 weeks later, Harrison stood in family court, dressed in his best suit, holding documents that represented the most meaningful commitment of his life. Judge Patricia Williams carefully reviewed the thick case file. In the front row, 5 children sat quietly, holding hands and wearing the finest clothes Harrison had bought for them. The psychological evaluations had been intense, the home inspections thorough, the background checks invasive. But he'd passed them all. "Mr. Blackstone," the judge said finally, lifting her eyes, "this court is ready to grant you temporary custody, pending final adoption." Tears formed in Harrison's eyes, tears he hadn't allowed himself in years. 6 months after that court ruling, the Blackstone mansion in Connecticut was no longer a hollow monument to power. It had been transformed into a real home. The stark white walls now displayed colorful crayon drawings. Backpacks lay scattered near the door. Laughter echoed through rooms that had remained silent for half a decade. Vincent and Marcus were both serving consecutive life sentences in federal prison. The evidence Emma had recorded left no room for doubt. Charges of conspiracy, murder, kidnapping, and fraud stuck harder than any bribe could erase. But for Harrison, justice paled in comparison to the gift of redemption. "Dad, watch this," Sophia called out from the backyard as she helped Tommy ride the new bicycle Harrison had bought him. That single word, "Dad," still filled his chest with a warmth he thought he'd never feel again. Emma sat beside him on the back porch, doing her homework with the same fierce focus she'd once used to protect her family. At 13, she had grown 3 inches, gained 20 pounds, and most importantly, learned to be a child again. "Mr. Blackstone, I mean Dad. She corrected with a shy smile. Do you ever miss your old life? The power, the business, all that money. Harrison watched little Michael, now 5, healthy, joyful, chasing Luis around the garden with pure delight lighting his face. The boy who shared his son's name had somehow become the bridge between his old grief and new joy. Emma, Harrison said gently. For years I believed I had lost everything that mattered. But I was wrong. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders. I didn't lose everything. I just had to wait to find the family I was meant for. Emma leaned into him. Her trust hard-won, but finally whole. Do you think your first family would be happy about us? I mean, all of this. Tears stung his eyes as he pictured Catherine and Michael. I think they'd love you all just as much as I do. Catherine used to say our house was too big for just 3 people. That night, as Harrison tucked little Michael into bed, the boy looked up with sleepy eyes and asked, Daddy, are you going to keep us forever? Forever and always, Harrison whispered, pressing a kiss to his forehead. Even when we're grown up. Even when you're grown up, Harrison promised. Family is forever, buddy. Later, he stood in the doorway of Emma's room, watching as she read a bedtime story to Sophia. The boys lay in sleeping bags on the floor, listening intently. It had become their nightly ritual. The 5 of them, together, safe and loved. Emma glanced up and caught him watching. Dad, are you okay? Harrison nodded, throat tight with emotion. I was just thinking how thankful I am that you reminded me of something I forgot. What's that? That love doesn't end when someone dies. It just finds new ways to grow. As he turned off the lights and whispered goodnight to his children, Harrison felt the final pieces of his shattered heart lock back into place. Catherine and Michael would always be with him. But Emma, Sophia, Tommy, Luis, and little Michael had shown him a truth he'd almost lost. A heart can hold infinite love without letting go of what came before. Outside, snow gently began to fall over their home, blanketing everything in soft white. Inside, 6 souls who had found each other against impossible odds slept soundly, dreaming of bright tomorrows filled with the only thing that truly mattered: family.